That's the part where you get frustrated and you're like, I put in 1,000
Well, they did.
hours.
So that what's happened is the more you invest, the more you're invested, which means that you seem to be like that teeter-totter is tilted too much, right? And I'm not saying they should just throw them to the wolves, but it is about understanding that some people will rise and some people won't. And that's just the way it is.
Land ahoy, mateys!
The archipelago awaits.
Okay, Daryl, this is what I've been telling people. I finally programmed my way out of a programming job. And what I'm so excited about is that it's more focusing on the business. So kind of 5 years ago, like I sat down and I started to teach myself how to program because like technology is the ultimate leverage. So if you can build a technology business, you have the ultimate leverage. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So just a couple of weeks ago, we announced to the team that I'm moving from CTO, so Chief Technical Officer, to COO, Chief Operating Officer. And within that switch, I get to focus more on the business side versus the technology side of the business.
Nice.
Which I'm super excited about because one thing that me and you have talked a lot about in the past is business models and time. So how can you build a business where the business model of your business, and I think this is something you've done really well with the Epiphany Group, is that the business model of the business, if you just give it enough time and it's just doing what it should be doing, it doesn't have to do anything absolutely amazing. But if it's just doing what it should be doing, then just given enough time that your business gets into a spot where it's just performing better than the businesses around it.
Yep. No, for sure. I think, all those parts, you need all those parts to fire together. But you're right, just a little time. I think sometimes we think we have to have this wow idea or do something revolutionary, but I think it's really just consistently applying that approach and making sure that it operates properly. So congrats on the new role.
Yeah.
It's good, exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited. So what this looks like now is that we're coming up to this point where we took 2 developers that were doing an amazing job and we hired them or promoted them into tech lead positions. So we have a tech lead of our client side and we have a tech lead of our internal development. So what we're going to do is I'm living more of a project manager role where I can work across all of our clients as the project manager, and I can live that role, find what works, find what doesn't work, and then build AI tools to help me live that PM role. And then I can eventually hire someone to do that PM role. But what's going to be a really cool milestone of the business that's coming up is that we would be able to bring in a client, I would be able to set up the project, and then I would be able to pass it off to the development department, and then they would be able to execute on the technological execution of the software without really any input from myself or Nathan, the business owners. So that would be the first time where the business is actually starting to turn.
Do what it's supposed to,
Yeah, to turn more without Nathan and I hands in the actual execution of it.
Yeah, so that obviously will allow you to scale and to bring on more and more stuff. And the main thing is it's not so reliant on you two, right? So, because everything right now has to go through your fingers and it doesn't move if you don't move. So, yeah, so I like it.
Yeah, that's what I'm super excited about because I was thinking of like, what is my dream outcome of a business owner? And I think this is a good question for you, is when you're running a business or you own a business, like what's your dream outcome? Like, what do you want from it?
You know, it's funny that because they have the big strike, teacher strike, I sort of think about how people we enter the school system through kindergarten and grade 1, and then we finally leave in grade 12. And if you could be a teacher in all those grades, you would follow the student, all the way through. And then I think you'd be very, very proud at graduation day that they're on their own and you've done it. And then you start that cycle over again. So for me, it's the same kind of thing. In my mind, the best outcome is that we wake up here and we're sitting here and we're staring at each other going, now what do we do? Because all parts of that business is functioning and really doesn't need us. We've taught them everything we can. We've mentored all we can. Together we have built and put our ideas together to make sure that that business runs properly. But ultimately, if that machine is operating, You know, if you think about like a piece of machinery, what else is there to do? If you turn the machine on, you hit the dishwasher and it's on, you can stand and stare at it, but really it's doing what it's supposed to do. And so that is the ultimate dream for me, is that we have all the parts, we have the whole vision, the whole thing collectively, and the machine is running, and it's running well. Then I know it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're sort of expendable at that point, but it is, I don't know, I mean, that's, for me, it seems to be, we pull ourselves so far out of it that it just runs and runs and runs. So
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing for myself. That's my dream outcome too, is being able to build a business that can run without you.
Yep.
And is just as good without you than it is with you.
Exactly.
Like that's kind of the dream outcome
Yeah.
for me. And then what's interesting, I'm reading the sales book right now. So they said identify the dream outcome. And then they say link that dream outcome to almost the status or the emotional input of the person. So I was trying to kind of pin that back on myself as like, okay, so my dream outcome is to like build a business that can operate without me. Like why? So it's a good question I'm going to ask you next. But for myself, I think it is pride of being able to build and create something. So the book gave up kind of a bunch of different examples, just very general examples of like, oh, well, why would somebody want to buy this workout class or this workout program? It was like, okay, well, they want to lose weight because they want to be more attractive. Like it gives them a feeling of power. Like it makes them like enter social groups, right? It was like emotional or social like status connections. I think for myself, I think it's an internal pride of being able to build and create something that I can just like kind of almost like, I don't know if sit back and admire, but be able to see it work and be able to see it created and say like, okay, well, I played a huge role in doing that. So what do you think it is for you?
well, I think it might probably be a combination of a couple things. I think one is the pride one for sure. I know it's interesting. I remember driving around southern Alberta one time, and this guy was driving by, and there was this weird looking sort of dam building on the landscape, and he pointed and said, my dad built that thing, and it was kind of random out of nowhere, but that idea that just like whether it's buildings that you built, it's the same thing. It's the businesses you built, and then the people you built. So you've worked with them, you've watched them mature, you've watched them reach their full potential, and you see that. So that's definitely part of it, a big part of it. I think the other thing is the idea that you can't go to the next thing until the first thing's complete. So the idea that if you, not that I have something imminent that I'm going to, but this idea that once it's complete, then you can go. And I used to watch this will age me, but there used to be that old kung fu show. You know, if you could snatch the pebble from my hand, the old master would say, or grasshopper one. But the idea is once you do that, then that is done and it's time for you to go. And that's that same thing. I think once it's built, then you can go, right? And so for me, it's that idea that whether you go or don't go, it's this idea that you have the freedom to go because it's done. And so that's an important thing. And I don't know if that's because sort of chasing the next thing or, you know, exploring the next thing, the next chapter of our lives, if that makes sense. But in order to go to the next chapter, the previous chapter has to be done. So I think there's a part of both of those for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when I think about myself in the rocking chair and like where I want to be in the rocking chair, I think it's just like, it's having those relationships, right? Yep. So you're talking about the people you build.
Yep.
But I think it would just be so cool to just go around and like talk to different business owners, talk to different people that are like trying to build and create like things that they're passionate about.
Yep.
And just going and just being able to connect with them and then give them advice and kind of share the stories that you've done along the way.
100%.
So, and then what's really cool about this role, because I was thinking about, okay, if that's where I want to be in this rocking chair, and I didn't put this together until about like kind of a week ago, is that now that I'm doing more client interactions, it's like that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I have a clients coming in from 10 to 12 today, and we're just going to sit down and we're just going to talk about their business, and we're just going to explore areas where we can like utilize technology and AI. And then I'm going to get to know them. I'm going to build that relationship. Yeah. So it's kind of like holy smokes, I like think about like where I want to be in that rocking chair, but this role is actually giving me like access to it, hopefully 60 years early.
Yeah, for 100%. Yeah, because those relationships are important, right? And to me, that's interesting when you said something about, when we, go on each of the stories, it's like, so in other words, that idea that we have a broad-based life where we covered lots of and have different experience and talk to different people and do that. And we can't do that if we're stuck in the trenches, if that makes sense. Like if you sit down and think about it, Johnny the factory worker, and he's there, and then he finally looks up and 30 years has gone by. He hasn't experienced that because he's just too busy in the trenches, where here we have that opportunity to have a little bit more broadly and meet different people, which then leads to different ideas, different experiences, so that when you're in the rocking chair and you look back, you smile because of the fact that you've had that very diverse life and lots of different stories, lots of different relationships and experiences.
Yeah, even last week, I got to go out to one of our agricultural clients and drive around on a quad to like learn about how they plant their fields and how they use the software.
Yeah.
And even just doing that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My buddy Luke shared this story with me. Is he was grabbing beers with the professor the one time, and he asked the professor if he should like do an internship or if he should go travel. And the professor was like, because he owned a business, and he was like, if I was hiring you in my business, I would care more about the experiences you have, the stories you can tell, versus the technical things that you
Right.
learned over the
Right.
over the summer. So he's like,
Yeah.
go explore, go travel somewhere, like build those experiences, build those stories, because that's how you're going to connect with people.
100%. And I think that is the key. And then you see that little board that I have there with all the pictures and all the different, that's really a connection board, because if somebody walks in, they theoretically should be able to point to some portion of the board, whether it's, sports, travel, friends, family, fishing, whatever I've got up on the board, pets or whatever, that there's something they will connect with. And so imagine that you sat there in, your little cubicle and you never left and you didn't do anything. What would be on this board? I've got 300 pictures there that I change every 6 months. I'd have one picture of the cubicle. And so to that professor's point, he's very much, because all that experience, all that life stories actually help you understand the technical better and how to connect with people, right? And so if we were living in a world where we never had to connect with people, then you don't need that. But I believe more and more, although technology and AI and everything's driving, really pushing the forefront, that connections in people will be the premium sort of thing that the world needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right there, because it's the emotional connection that it comes down to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's weird to think of us as like animals, like you think of like dogs, but like honestly, we're kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like we are driven instinctually by emotions, and that is a deep human emotion that you cannot get around, and that AI and technology cannot substitute.
No.
And then you also said to me in the past too, when we were talking about, I was kind of spitballing like the future in the business, and you said the client solutions role is also the hardest role to fill, but it's also the most rewarding role.
It is.
Because you understand technically like what you're good at doing,
Yeah.
but then you have to understand the person and then be able to bridge the gap between the technical solutions and the person.
That's exactly, and that's what the world pays the premium for. And it's really interesting when you think about technology and AI. All automation, all that's supposed to be designed to free up our time. And if we freed up our time, we should be able to connect with more people. And that's not necessarily what people do, but that is what the theory is, right? But it seems like the more and more we speed up everything, the less and less connected we are to people. So it's kind of a weird relationship, when in fact, the idea is if this can do something in a quarter of the time, that frees us up the time to spend the time with each other. But
yeah, absolutely. And that's the leverage of technology, but it's kind of like probably the 80-20 rule, right? Like right now you can put one person in an excavator and it can do the work of 100 men digging holes with shovels, maybe 1,000 men, right? But technology, like AI is going to be the same thing. Like in the next, like right now that example I just told you was extremely obvious. No one would argue it.
Yeah.
You could argue AI today,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
no, okay, AI doesn't do the work of 10
Yeah.
people, 100 people, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it will. It
Yeah.
will in the future,
No,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
But the thing is, it's that one skilled person driving the excavator that can actually like fine tune and level the ground and do it close to houses. That's the person that actually gets 10 times leveraged. You need that one person in control of, in this case, it would be the AI or whatever that technology you're building. Like, you still need that skilled person that's going to be able to 10 times what they're able to do.
100%. And that person needs to understand what the desired outcome. So the customer, the relationship you have, what is that? What are they trying to get? And then they're bridging, saying, hey, I've got this machinery that could do that. And when they don't understand the machinery, and in this case, it's going to be AI, technology, automation, any of those things. But you have to have the people that understand those two worlds, the machinery, but more equally as important is what is it we're trying to accomplish versus, right? Versus if you have a person that technically understands it perfectly, but has no connectivity to people, that doesn't seem to work. So the person that can balance those worlds better, I think, to your point, is the key person with that leverageability. Yeah. So
Exactly. You could have the best technical solution, but if the person emotionally doesn't want to use it or doesn't want to like buy into it, then it doesn't matter.
yeah, 100%.
Then your computer just turns into a brick and it just sits there on the counter.
100%. Yeah.
I know there's a better way, but we're not driven logically to the better way.
No, I think your experience, my experience is when we meet with different business people and all that, you can see a lot of them aren't driven for that. Whether it's their ego, whether it's their pride, whether it's they don't like change, all these things, you can just see that they're just never going to do it. And it's not that it doesn't need to be done for their business and actually for themselves, but they're just not going to go on that journey. And what's going to happen is slowly they're going to get marginalized over time. That's just the way it goes. Their business and or them.
Yeah. And what I'm really excited about this new role is that you shared with me in the past that since you've done a lot of consulting, you've done a lot of sales, you said there's kind of like 6 different personalities or people that you can kind of identify, and kind of based on the person, like you kind of change your approach to be able to connect with them better.
Yep.
And that's what I'm really excited for, is that I've started to notice that a little bit more in my life around me. So then when I'm going into these situations, like I'm excited to start looking for these patterns to kind of understand people at a deeper level, to then be able to say, okay, well, this is what's actually really important to them. This is what drives them. It's not like, it's not the return on the software. They care about how the software looks and they can tell their friends about it.
100%.
Or they don't really care about how it looks. As long as it's functional and it doesn't break, that's the thing that's most important to them.
Yeah, the funny thing is we think there's, whatever it is, 5, 6, 8, 10 billion people in the world that are different, but functionally most people are fundamentally the same. So if you went inside of a business, you could pick, oh, there's Johnny in that business, but if you went to the next business, you could find the Johnny in that business, and they have the same pattern. So generally, whatever it is, whether it's 4, 6, 8, it's just people are roughly the same. And they just, in a different setting, if you go around. So once you sort of figure that out, they're roughly in that range, and it's an easier, quicker starting point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my next plan. So what's really cool when we were thinking about the dream outcomes that we talked about earlier, like I'm starting to see the full picture of how the business can now operate almost fully by itself. So what I think a big problem inside of our businesses right now is to get onboarded to get our services is too hard, right? So if we wanted to start a new, say, AI portal with a company, it's probably anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to get started with us. But once we get in the company and we can start building these things, they can see the return on investment and it's worth it. But what's hard is, how many businesses are just going to sign up for that 10 to 20K starting point, where you really need to be able to sell and communicate and build confidence with that person. And that's probably like, on average, I think we found it's 3 months to be able to build up the relationship, to be able to get kind of a close like that. Where what I'm doing now is I'm thinking, how can I build more on-ramp points to the business? And how can we actually start generating revenue that's not linked directly to technical development? Because then what's really cool is if we can do that, then it's not a deep technical business. Now we actually have a bigger kind of pool of people that we can hire that can actually start generating revenue inside of the business.
Yeah, I think if you have too specialized of something, then there's risk with that specialized singular person, and then it's equally the clients would be the same. But if it was more broad based, then all of a sudden you get more interaction. I mean, you think about Apple and the phones and all the stuff and all the cords and everything, how if you sit down and think about that network of stuff now they have and how much revenue they can get from all of these different sources over time and how integrated it's been from a simple point of view, off ramps or entry points you can have, the better off you are if you can figure
exactly, and options to appeal to different people, because like say everyone had to just buy their iPhone outright, well that'd be $1,700.
Yep.
So then you would have to save up $1,700 to buy your iPhone.
Right.
But the on-ramp is, okay, all these service providers, oh, now it's actually only $30 a month on top of your contract to get this iPhone.
Exactly.
So it's so much easier to be able to actually get into the product.
Right. So simplicity is the path.
Yeah. So here's what I'm doing. So I'm building an AI workshop where I can work with business owners to start identifying actual AI opportunities and experimenting building their own bots. So the kind of philosophy that we had when we started the business is we'll be your technology partners, we'll be your partner in success.
Yeah.
But I found that a lot of businesses, managers and business owners want to do these things themselves. Like they want to get their hands on it. They want to understand it. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm building an on-ramp of where I can do an AI workshop where they would come in and they would be able to start understanding how I think about like artificial intelligence, how I use it inside of our business today. I can show some concrete examples.
Yeah.
And then what I can do is I can give them access to our AI servers for the first 3 months for free. Because then what's really nice about this structure is that right now I'm just doing the AI workshops for free. I'm like, I want to see as many businesses as possible. I just started last week and I just completed my first one.
Yep. How'd it go?
It actually went really good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. It was really cool starting from like, here's like some grand ideas to here's actually a concrete place that I can start building it today and start testing it to be able to give it out to people. Because I think what's hard is we think of like these big solutions and these big problems and it can solve this. But we can scale that back to be able to identify like, actually, no, here's a little tiny piece that I could build in 2 hours that I could start using today. So that's the goal, is to be able to get to that point. And then once I have this kind of workshop built out, and I've done it with so many businesses, first of all, it's not like right now we have like larger clients, but we have, let's say 10 solid clients, right? Well, now if we have smaller clients, now I can say I've worked with hundreds of businesses.
Right.
I've worked with all these businesses. I've seen all these different problems. I can teach someone who's good at identifying problems and communicating how to run a workshop. So again, it's not that deep technical work. It's now I've built up this process. Here's what we can follow, and I can hire a different type of person in this role. Then we get people onboarded onto our AI servers. So we're testing our AI servers, seeing what people actually build, see what people use. So now we have more real world examples. And then after the 3 months, it turns into a reoccurring revenue subscription where they get charged per consumption. So the more they use it, the more value it should give them. Kind of, that's what they would have to pay back to us. So then we're building these small little on-ramps, and now the business model has more recurring revenue. But eventually, like if you want a full-blown system where AI is just analyzing the data, well, that's where we go into the custom AI portals. But now the business owner has built these things themselves. So it's not me selling them what it can do in their business. They already know. They built it themselves. They just need help putting it together.
100%. I like it. It's always interesting from a sales 101 is that, like when you go into a furniture store, they say, look at that couch. They go, well, why don't you just sit on it? And as soon as you interact with it and sit on it, then the probability of the sale drives through. So obviously if they start using the stuff there, then they're interacting. They're proverbial sitting on the couch. And yeah, for sure, it'll be Yeah, they'll have their hands right on it, and so
Yeah,
that's great.
which I'm super excited
Yeah.
about. And then there's this technology company called DigitalOcean. And so when I was first learning how to put a website live on the internet, they had so many help posts and community notes of people asking questions, where I started using their services because they had the best kind of community that were solving the same problems
Yeah,
that I
exactly.
solved.
Yeah,
So what I want to do is I want to build community
an AI community.
of AI
Yeah.
business owners
Yeah.
and AI managers,
Yeah.
where then if they do the AI workshop, congratulations, you get access to this community
Yep.
of business owners who are actually doing this in their business today,
Yep.
and then be able to expose them to people and different problems and be able to help support each other. So that, I think that's my next step, is because
Yeah.
then if I can start building up more of a community where now you have real businesses like creating content for you, well, now you basically have more exposure and the network effect starting to take off a
Yeah.
little more,
I like it.
because they're all centralized around this one thing.
I like it, yeah. And I think you're bridging the world of this AI when people hear that. You're bridging it from this global idea to what I call Main Street. You're pulling it back so that they can interact with it. And that'll be incredible for them and incredible for you. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
like it.
super excited. I'm super excited just to run through it, and then to build, like I said, that dream outcome and put people in the place. Like I got all these ideas. So this is another fun thing that I'm doing, is that I bought an old school Sony voice recorder, and what I'm doing now inside of my project management meetings. So I learned this last week, is when I was on the ATV and I was watching them use the software, I have my notebook out and I was like drawing
Try to-
this chicken scratch
Yeah,
of like,
try to write as it's bouncing around.
exactly. And then I
Yeah.
go back and I'm trying to read this, and then I have to turn that into notes and turn this into tasks. And I'm like, I have no idea what I even wrote here. Well, what I'm doing now is I just got the voice recorder, so I'm going to bring a voice recorder with me.
Yeah.
And then I can be able to use the voice recorder to be able to give it key words, key arguments. So when I'm in meetings, I can say, hey, AI assistant, I can name it, I'll call it Mort, whatever it is. Hey, Mort, this is really important. We have to highlight that the client needs X. The client's sitting directly across from me. I'm hoping too the client will start buying into it too and start saying like, Mort, make sure you note down, and then I can just plug this into my computer, use AI to process it. I can build out now a process into my project management flow, where now these tools are leveraging what I can do.
Yep.
Because what happened after we went back to the farm, it was me and a developer. We drove back afterwards and we talked about their software for 30 minutes, right? But then when we got back, we had to sit down, we had to type it out, we had to talk about it again.
Yeah.
But if I just use my old school Sony voice recorder, now that half an hour we just drove back, plug it in, done.
Done. Yeah. Incredible, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited in this new role to kind of see the different opportunities and see like what it can kind of lead into. And then, like you said, well, I don't really know what's next, right? You have to kind of complete the thing to be able to see like, okay, well, what's the next opportunity that's going to present itself?
Yes, technology is going to do a lot of the lifting, but again, the people, the journey of the people. So any thoughts, any trepidation, any concerns, anything around the people when you think about the people? And
well, I just know that we have to make mistakes. That's the part that I feel like I'm going to have to walk the line on. Is like, I've already seen things where I want to say something, but it's like, how much should you keep putting your input, and how much you just have to let that person live those experiences? Because if I think about my journey over these last 2 years, like the one thing that I was doing before that I came and talked to you about was I was doing weekly meetings with a bunch of developers to kind of help mentor them. But I had to live that process to then figure out is, okay, I should leave the door open for developers to come talk to me. And the people that walk through these doors and bring me the ideas, those are probably the people I should invest the most time into, because they're the ones taking those next steps and being proactive on it. But that took me like probably 4 months of doing these weekly meetings, and then frustration, reflection, conversation, change to then implement it and learn. And now I like have a deep understanding of it. But that's the thing that's kind of on my mind is And it'd be good feedback from you, because I bet you've seen this quite a bit, is like, when do you hold your tongue or when do you give advice?
The idea is that if you're in there every minute saying something or need to say something, then it really isn't functioning if you step back for a sec. Right? But I think the other thing I think we worry about is that, well, if we leave them sort of on their own a bit, well, it's because we didn't teach them. That's why they went astray, or they didn't. But that really, I find, do we have to be there every minute? Does it really materially make a difference? Or do you just step back and you go, you know what? They've got to go on that path so they learn, or, here's the other or, so that it's recognized that they'll never learn. And that's a good possibility as well, that people's behavior set makes it so that they always have to do that unforced error. There's just a wiring inside them. And so.
Yeah, and then as like the owner that made the decision, it's like, well, from these last kind of year and a half, I think I have a good understanding of these people. Like, I've seen their unforced errors, I've seen their patterns, and I've seen what they do. So that's what I find too, is like, when I give advice, I need to reflect on that advice and say, okay, am I living that advice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, in that case, it's like, okay, well, even with, these new tech leads, it's like, okay, well, leave the door open. And they'll walk through it when they have questions, because they've done it in the past. So why treat them any different now?
Yeah, 100%.
Leave the door open, and they'll come to you when they have questions, and let them have the control and the autonomy to be able to do it.
100%.
Or, like you said, learn that they don't want to do it or can't do it in this situation.
As
right?
a wiring, yep. And I think what it does then, it saves you a ton of time too, because I think when we sit there and frustration, because I think there's this thing that the more we invest in people, the more our sort of frustration level gets that they don't get it. Like, I spent 1,000 hours with you, how come you can't get it? Well, the fact is, if their wiring is, it doesn't matter if you spend 1,000 hours or 2 hours, they're not getting it. So that kind of idea. So I think by your experiment there where you said, I'll just turn it around and have the door open, see who comes, it saved you probably a ton of time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then you also recognized who came through the door and who didn't. And is it fair to say, with no names here, is it fair to say some of the people that didn't come through the door aren't with the company?
Yeah. Well, it made it clear who wants to take that next step, right? And then what I can do is now I can make better decisions on taking that next step with them. And realize how much time I put in.
100%.
Right? Because then if someone takes that step and I put in an hour, and then I follow up, or they come to me 2 weeks later and they're doing everything that we talked about, great, I'll put in 2 hours. I'll put in 3 hours.
Right, 100%.
But I want to watch and see these patterns instead of saying, you know what, because you're here, I'm going to put in 1,000 hours. Right? That's the part where you get frustrated and you're like, I put in 1,000 hours.
Well, they did. So that what's happened is the more you invest, the more you're invested, which means that you seem to be like that teeter-totter is tilted too much, right? And I'm not saying they should just throw them to the wolves, but it is about understanding that some people will rise and some people won't. And that's just the way it is. And the more we understand that behavior set. So it's very interesting how you're sort of in two worlds. You're in the technology world and you're in the people world. One's more predictable than the other. So, but it's an extraordinary journey of the people. At the worst case, it'll frustrate the hell out of you. But at the best case, you'll see some people rise, and that's what makes it. It's kind of like golfing when you have a good shot. That keeps you coming back for all the lousy shots.
Typically, you get 1 or 2 good shots, and you're like, you know what? I'll play again. I just took 100 shots.
Yeah. Exactly. 2
were good. I'll come back and I'll play again.
And a lot of times that is the case, the same sort of ratio for people rising versus not. Because if you sit down, if everybody would rise, then we wouldn't need all the things we need in our world, our social sort of nets to support people or protect people. It's because they just have a difficult time rising and consistently rising.
Yeah, I find that we overthink it too. Like, honestly, one of the simplest things that I've asked myself is, does this relationship make my life easier or harder? It has to be one of the two. It's either easier or harder. And then if it's always harder, well, then you have to ask yourself why, and is it worth it? But it's pretty clear when you just simplify it to that. It's like, no, this person actually always makes my life easier.
Yep.
It's like, well, yeah, we need to keep that person around as much as possible because like they're good at what they do.
Yep.
And they're going to make everybody else's. This is the other part I think that I underestimated was that, okay, say this person's making my life harder. They're actually making everybody around them, their lives harder.
Yeah.
So it's not just an hour of my time.
It's an hour of the next.
Multiply that by every single person in the business or that's around them.
Yep.
And then that has a compound effect.
Yep. Yeah, because the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. So it's not that they're perfectly sort of a positive in everybody's and they bring to you as a negative. That's not the case. They're consistent. They go office to office and just burn, right? They just burn time, right? You know, like a time thief just on every office, right? So
yeah, and that's a part of it. Like even in this transition, I know the business won't be able to produce as much as we could have before, but that's in the short term. But if you think about the long term, and like we talked about, like you're actually building a part that's just going to be able to turn and produce.
100%.
To me, then that's 100% the money in this short term.
Yeah.
And then we can focus on the parts of the business that are harder to start turning the wheel on.
Yeah.
Right? Because now I feel like, honestly, I feel like we built the hardest part of the business, like the technical side, to have that technical side. And I feel like it's more with where my skills are at as well too. More personally, is that I feel like that side of the business was the hardest to build. And to me, I'm like, if I'm going to these other side of the businesses, like I think I'm going to be able to build it pretty fast. So it'll be interesting to see, like, am I just going to have a reality shock, you know, a year or 2 years in the future where I'm like still trying to hire the project manager role? Or is it going to be, you know what, actually I had a clear vision and I was able to execute on it.
100%. Well, I think that journey of even chasing that vision is well worth it regardless of the exact outcome. But yeah, I think it's clearer and clearer. But I think if you keep looking through the eyes of the rocking chair back and saying, how do I want this and how do I want this thing to look? Then you got to keep pulling the trigger toward that direction for sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Anchors up!
Time to set sail.